If we are to understand the nature of risk, it seems to me that we have to understand the concept of complexity. The world we're living is becoming more complex. The threats and risks we're facing are more complex. And the solutions that we need to develop are also becoming more complex.
Ultimately, what I think is that organisations need to plan for multiple different risks, because whenever a crisis hits, it could be any one or any number of different risks that threaten that organisation. So actually the important thing is about building a depth and breadth of capability.
The way I consider this, I think risk management is quite often it's a very structured and quite often a centralised process within organisations. It's well managed, it's well understood and used for reporting those risks and mitigating when you're talking about reassurance to the board, trustees, sponsorship. I think what's often less well understood is how we manage kind of emerging issues, those sort of slower burn risk issues, and misunderstood maybe for a number of reasons. That there may be a not real clarity in who owns that. I think crisis management and the element with risk management is crisis management is always weighted until the fire starts, if you like, and that's the analogy. We're always waiting to put out fires, whereas I think if we got better, and perhaps an area that crisis management needs to move into, would be to address these emerging issues, these that don't have strict ownership, and it's important that teams understand and have autonomy to be able to address and manage those issues.
So McDonald's was a really good example of a business that saw an issue on the horizon, that was the obesity crisis, and they got straight on to adapting their menus to having healthier choices. They put in programs at schools for fitness and active camps, and instead of becoming the poster child for obesity, which they could quite easily have become, they actually got ahead of the game and addressed that issue very early on.
In our experience, organisations are really conditioned by their experience of risk that they've experienced as an organisation or that they see on the news. Our starting point is to try and work with them to understand the real risks that could cause a high impact, low likelihood event to really disrupt their organisation.
Social media has essentially increased the impact of a crisis to most companies. The study showed that an average cost of a crisis in 2000 was about $10 million, and about 25% of companies that the cost of a crisis is more like $100 million. A recent study released last year by Aon and Pentland Analytics shows that the cost of a crisis is actually double. And the primary reason behind that is social media.
One of the things that we found is that generally over time, depending on what clients are concerned about, after they've put in a lot of planning and a lot of investment and a lot of time to think about certain risks, they actually start to feel more confident in how they can respond to and manage those risks. People have been spending a lot of time and putting a lot of investment into cyber preparedness. And what we've seen over the years is that confidence is increasing around how they can respond to those types of crises.
The thing about risk is, traditionally it's been based on a historical perspective. We've looked at things that have happened in the past, and from there we've projected into the future. And it's possible that those problems or those risks could get greater or more severe, but there's been a rational and logical projection. I think that the question we need to ask ourselves today is whether the nature of the risks that we are seeing are changing so radically that historical perspective no longer works. Are we seeing a mutational change, where the risks and threat we're facing are mutating to such an extent that the frameworks and protocols and understanding that we've developed in previous generations simply do not work?